Well, it's official. DC Universe is effectively dead. So let's talk about how it started, its slow death, and what happens next. The concept of a DC streaming service was announced in April of 2017 to mixed responses. Some thought that having a dedicated streaming service to DC content was a great idea, while others thought that there were already enough streaming services, and that a DC streaming service wouldn't be as substantial as Netflix, for example. But in retrospect, if DC Universe was all it promised to be, it probably would have been worth it. But I'll get back to that. It was during this announcement where it was revealed that Titans, a show that had been in production limbo for years, and Season 3 of Young Justice would premiere on the service as well. On November 20th, 2017, an animated Harley Quinn series was announced. On January 13th of 2018, an X-Files style Superman prequel series from the producers of Gotham called Metropolis was announced for a 2019 release. Then, on May 2nd, a bunch of news on the service came out. It was announced that the streaming service would be called DC Universe, that Swamp Thing had been ordered, and that Metropolis was officially on hold, with it eventually fizzling out. Later that month, Doom Patrol was announced as a loose spin-off of Titans. In July, Stargirl was announced, and August brought the announcements of DC Daily and beta tests of the service. The service officially launched on September 15th of 2018, and the first episode of DC Daily was released at that same day. The first episode of Titans aired in October, which a lot of people consider to be the true start of the service. DC Universe had a lot of unique things to offer. It was one of only a few big niche streaming services. It had pretty high quality original content, and was unique in that it streamed comics. Plus, the price wasn't really that bad, but where it sort of fell short was the acquired programming. The big advantage that DC has over Marvel Studios in this respect is that most of the DC shows and movies have been made by Warner Brothers. If Marvel Studios, for example, tried to launch a Marvel streaming service, they could put on most of the MCU stuff, the live-action shows, and the Marvel production/Marvel animation shows. Just recently, they've been able to start putting the Fox movies and shows on Disney+, and there's still a lot of shows and movies locked up by other companies. Meanwhile, the last DC movie or TV show that was produced by someone other than Warner Brothers was that early 90s Swamp Thing show. There's tons of stuff they could put on there, especially including behind-the-scenes stuff and documentaries. But by the time that DC Universe launched, they were in a phase that people also experienced to some extent with Disney+. That is, people were all excited to stream everything ever, but realized that a lot of the stuff they expected to be on at launch was still tied up in contracts with other services. But that would be a temporary problem, right? Wrong. Because DC Universe didn't die a natural death as some assume. It was murdered. Murdered by HBO Max. HBO Max was first announced on October 10th of 2018, under a month after the official launch of DC Universe and just 2 days before the premiere of the first episode of Titans. Let's go back to that Marvel analogy. Imagine if Marvel did launch that Marvel streaming service with a limited amount of Marvel content. Then, a month after it was released, Disney announced Disney+. With Disney marketing Disney Plus with the Marvel movies in mind. That's basically what happened with HBO Max. As those contracts with other streaming services ended, you'd expect those DC shows and movies to show up on DC Universe. But no, they were being saved for HBO Max. There's even less acquired shows on DC Universe now than there were at launch. About a month ago, I made a list of DC Universe content. What did they have in the way of movies? The 1948 Superman serial, 2 Wonder Woman TV movies, the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie, Jonah Hex, and The Spirit, which isn't even a DC movie. That's it. You could argue that's only one real DC movie. They have a pretty reasonably large selection of animated movies, though they should have all of them considering they're direct-to-video and made by Warner Brothers. In terms of live-action shows, they have the 50s George Reeves Superman show, the 70s Shazam, the 70s Wonder Woman, Legends of the Superheroes, Superboy, Dean Cain's Superman, Birds of Prey, the 2006 Aquaman pilot, the 2000s Human Target, Constantine, and Krypton. Nothing really that great. And as for animated shows, they're doing alright. Say goodbye to DCEU movies, any big DC movies in general, or any live-action shows from this century that lasted more than 1 or 2 seasons. The biggest con of them all is that HBO Max has started taking some of DC Universe's original shows as well in an effort to save the dying streaming service. But the success of Doom Patrol on HBO Max and Stargirl airing on the CW just one day after its premiere on DC Universe makes DC Universe obsolete. Why get DC Universe when their shows are on other places as well? Not to mention that HBO Max has greenlit its own exclusive DC TV shows. DC Universe has been struggling since the second half of last year. They still made the bold choice to greenlight a show called Bizarro TV in October of last year, which will probably never be made. Earlier this year, they stopped offering yearly subscriptions because they didn't want to get sued if someone bought one and didn't get a year of service. And now we know DC Universe's death date. In January of next year, DC Universe will transform into DC Universe Infinite, becoming pretty much the only thing it still has, a comic book streaming service. Doom Patrol's 3rd season will be on HBO Max, Titans' 3rd season will be on HBO Max, Young Justice's 4th season, Young Justice Phantoms, will be on HBO Max, the newly announced 3rd season of Harley Quinn will be on HBO Max, and Stargirl's 2nd season will be entirely on the CW. Goodbye, DC Universe. You tried your best, but in the end, you were murdered.